Hello and welcome to the Rewild You podcast. I'm Haitana, and through my work as a coach, I support people to rebuild and thrive beyond loss or adversity that changes our world. If you're looking to harness your inner strength, reclaim your authentic self, and create a purposeful, aligned life, this podcast is for you. Here we delve into powerful, real-life stories of transformation, plus tools and insights to help guide you to finding your way forward. If you're ready to rise stronger and live fully, to rewild you, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Absolutely honoured to be joined by Dae-Maree. I really feel is a kindred spirit, and I know that we've had a few conversations before, and I just feel like we're aligned in so many ways, in the way that we talk about and think about grief and loss. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining. I have actually so been looking forward to having a griefy chat with you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing me along too. This is really exciting, and what a brilliant idea and I guess platform and way of connecting with everyone out there and together, obviously. Like, I've been looking forward to this chat too. It's been a while. But yeah, I'm hoping that whoever's listening will get something from our conversation today for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So I wonder if you can start us off. I know it's really hard to summarize these types of things, but could you share a bit about your loss that you experienced that we're talking about today and about your own journey with grief and loss?
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a big question because there's so much to it. However, anyone who is already familiar with me will know my story. But for those that don't, my loss journey started 12 years ago in 2012 when me and my family lost our baby girl. Her name is Arden. That was a real, to say the very least, heart-wrenching, soul-bearing journey in itself. But it was also the catalyst for real growth within myself. I think that I definitely wouldn't be doing the job that I do today, would be the person I am without that massive life lesson. The same year, my nana passed of cancer. She was a huge person in my life. She had, I don't know, some really sound wisdom and advice whenever I needed it. So I still have my granddad with me, and he's brutally honest. So I still get the advice, just maybe not delivered as delicately, but okay, I love him for that. And then, throw me forward to the present day. I've had different forms of loss present in many different ways, and each one just kind of highlights how this can look so different for everybody. It could come down to the loss of a pet, a loss of a job, loss of your sense of self. There's just really no limit to it. That's it in a nutshell. But I mean, I'll go on forever and go as deep as you like. So you just let me know where you want me to take you, and I'll take you there.
No, that's amazing. Really special and so valuable for others that you're in a space now where you can share about it and talk about it. And I was listening to most of your episode, your own interview on the Growth Project podcast earlier today, and if people want to go and learn about the full, about an hour or so.
I'm quite the yarner. So if you want a story, you'll get one. Yes, that's on the Growth Project podcast on Spotify. You just search that and you'll find it. And that does give a bit of a really in-depth look into what that journey really looked like for me. But you're right, it definitely has set me up to be able to continue to support people in this way, because grief is a funny one. People some people assume that, you just kind of get on with it. And for some people that works, but not often for very long. And talking about the likes of death or bereavement or grief in general can be quite hard for a lot of people. So there's us folks like you and me and a lot of people I work with in the community and my other job, we all just are here to lend that shoulder and listen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, I don't know about you, I can only really speak from my own experience, but we kind of live in a world where that talking about these things wasn't the done thing. It hasn't been the done thing. Like, talking about emotions hasn't been modeled fully well for us. I was talking about this with someone else recently as well. It's like
that beach ball analogy, like you try and hold something like the beach ball underwater, and the more you suffer under the earth, the bigger it gets, the brighter it gets. Like your arms and your shoulders, everything starts hurting and eventually pops out in a way that is maybe not so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the Coke bottle. I love those analogies. It's a really good tool, I find, just talking with people to give that visual concept. And, you know, you shake a Coke bottle, everyone knows what happens. But if you start to release that cap a little bit by talking about your experience, sometimes that can relieve that pressure and save the explosion and the cleanup.
So I'm wondering, was there, obviously this is a lifelong thing, but from those early days, was there a moment, maybe there was one moment, or maybe it was like a series of different things that happened where it helped you be like, oh, it's not about letting time heal necessarily. It's like, I can do something about this. I can do things to help myself, really reclaiming your agency in that journey. Be interested to hear what it was that kind of took you from, you know, yes, we need that shock and we definitely need that process of figuring it out and integrating that. But there comes a time and it's like, well, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's a really good question, actually, because there's those. Okay, so the different stages of grief, I'm not a huge fan of that model. I understand it, but it challenges me in just about every single way. I think early on in my own particular experience, and not everyone will have this, and that's completely fine, but some people will resonate in some way. With my circumstances, I had this, I guess, form of acceptance. And I don't mean acceptance in how we usually frame that. It was more like, okay, this is happening. I have to do this. The outcome will not be what we initially thought. And you kind of go into survival mode and just the to-dos. And that actually really helped me in the long run. Honestly, I think that I had to hit some form of a rock bottom. And for me, it was the moment that I realized that I had been trying to control what I could in my life. And because everything else got out of control, my whole world, and I say and I became quite selfish in my grief because it was my own independent experience. But bear in mind, I had a whole family at the same time too, you know, other kids, my husband, my wider family. Everyone was experiencing that at the same time, but you can't help but, like I said, be quite what would appear selfish in that moment. I remember my house needing to be immaculate. And when I say immaculate, it didn't necessarily mean inside my cupboards were clean, but presentation-wise, I had to have everything in its space. And it got to the point where my poor kiddies couldn't even sit on a bed that had been made because I would be so frantic about the mess. And, you know, it was probably one of those beautiful babies of mine just crying or getting upset from my reaction that kind of was like that wake up call, like, well, what are you doing? You know, I was existing, I wasn't living. And I think I was an element of survival and trying to navigate through this absolute mind mess, this chaos and this whole realizing our expectation of what was going to happen now wasn't. It was cleaning out the nursery and giving away all of her things that we would have been using. It was having two of our family members, very close family members, expecting babies at the same time and loving that experience, but also really, you know, flourishing through it, that as well. I challenged myself to experience all of it. So I didn't want to miss it. Absolutely. I didn't want to miss anything with those babies that were coming along because that's a blessing in itself. And it wasn't their fault, you know, like it was no one's fault. So all of these things, I know I've kind of gone off at a tangent, but they all play a part in recognizing your own boundaries and when to step back and recognizing what's healthy and what's not. And keeping my house like that was not okay. It was, again, me trying to do what I could. Then you kind of fast forward and everything is a learning process, right? Like you meet people, you have interactions, you make steps, you do things for yourself, you live your life, and you kind of look backwards and go, everything was a lesson. I am consistently evolving, and something I've kind of been practicing and acknowledging and, you know, talking to some of my clients with is the fact that although we don't have a lot of control, we do have a choice in some of these things. And grief itself is, there's no descriptive word because it's all of the things. It's painful, it's hurtful, it's beautiful. It is an absolute symbol of how much love you have for something or someone. And it's a beautiful price to pay. But also where I was kind of going with that is that you can feel grief and you can hold those emotions that come along with it, but you can somewhat choose how to experience those. And to kind of give an example of that is you might feel really sad one day, and that would be really normal. And you might choose to be that sad that you sit in bed all day and you take that day and you just hibernate and hide from the world, and that would be fine. You choose to experience it that way. However, you can always choose an alternative route as well. You might want to go and explore the world and do things that feed your soul and nourish you and make you feel better, all the while feeling that sadness. So that's the choice in how you experience it. That's something I found really helpful to kind of have for my own mindset, is that no matter what it is, you have that choice. And it's not always easy, but you do have the choice. And all of those things combined lead right back to your question that you initially asked me, and it was, what were those moments? And like you said, it's a combination, it's an accumulation, it's all sorts of things that kind of pop along and show you. But in those initial stages, when, you know, the shock was still quite present, it was recognizing those potentially unhealthy traits that I was exhibiting and the harmful impact that it might have been having on me and those around me. But that's a very hard space to step out of and look inwards. So there's no time frame, there's no expectation, and that's another thing that I think is very valuable to know and to learn and to listen to, is that time frame. We live in a society, and especially in a Western world, where there's understanding and there's awareness, but there's also these stereotypical expectations that you are back at work after 2 weeks of bereavement. You know, things are done in that 5-day period before a funeral, and it's boom, 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 and then you are sitting there and you've got the company and presents and the gifts and the condolences for 2-3 weeks, and then everything starts to peter out, and that is absolutely normal, and no one has forgotten about the bereaved, but that person or those people feel forgotten sometimes. So again, expectations around some of these things, I think, and that's an area that needs talked about a lot to normalize it.
And I'd love to talk to you more about that. Just want to highlight what you said about it wasn't, maybe it was the first, but one of the early times of noticing how you're obviously doing the best that you knew. Then we all do. But it wasn't until, and I've done this too, we think we're doing fine, and then you notice how our behavior is impacting on someone else, and that it's reflected back in a really quite poignant way. And I think the more people I talk to, the more that I find that's true. And I think growing up in this, like, shall we right society, and throwing any emotions just under the rug, hiding them in the back corner of the cupboard, and and we think we're doing fine. And then you ask someone else who perhaps is close with you or live with you, and they'll be like,
and you know, you kind of mentioned there about how, like I said, bringing these things to attention and, you know, talking about these topics that are typically assumed to be one way or the other is into harden up, and they take a trip to she'll be right. Oh, you should be over it by now. All those things. And sometimes people mean really well by what they're saying. And most people are really genuinely saying things with the best and most beautiful concern for your well-being. But it can be taken in a really different way when you're not in the right mindset or in a certain stage of grief or whatever experience you're going through. And I think that talking about it is one of the most therapeutic ways you can get through something or navigate through something or move forward from something into something, the next phase, but also doing that in a really safe and gentle manner, and knowing that, again, time frames and that the person themselves, they're the ones who get to decide when that conversation happens. They're the ones who dictate and kind of allow that conversation to go at a pace that's comfortable for them. You know, sometimes shedding light on things too soon can be quite, you know, that's a lot and overwhelming. So it's so nice to be in a space, much like you, that you can facilitate that in a way that works for not even a client necessarily, just anyone who's needing that talk.
Yeah. I so love your passion. It's so inspired. So yeah, how about we go there then? Perhaps maybe there's 2 ways and you can choose which way you want to run with it, or maybe both. Is in your own personal experience, did you have expectations or shoulds or beliefs about the way things should be happening or stages you should be thinking you should be in, maybe from your perspective? Or is there perhaps one really pervasive belief that you see in speaking with other people and working with clients that you see, if there's just like a little bit of grief education around this that could really transform people's experiences?
Yeah, I think that I could probably combine the two really, because although grief is independent, there is a general consensus to, or a general theme that tends to come through, and it is expectations around a really good question. And I kind of smile as I say this, because I remember asking this myself to someone who had been through a similar experience. And it wasn't until it happened to me that I realized I'm now part of this club that no one wants to be a part of, but there's a lot of members, but I never knew because it wasn't talked about. I remember asking this person, what do I do? Look, how does it get better? When does it get better? And expecting answers. And I think that's something that is really good to bring some awareness around, is that there is no right or wrong. There is no time frame. You shouldn't be feeling better by this time. There's no, it's not 2 weeks, it's not 2 years, it's not 2 decades. It's when you feel differently. And that could mean the smallest change in your day. For me, in my personal experience, if I refer to that, I went through Groundhog Day. I remember waking up and setting myself up for failure, because I instantly, before I opened my eyes, would ask myself, do I feel better? As you know, like, and putting that expectation on myself instantly and living that same life over and over, just waiting for something to change. And I think that that's really natural and really normal. And there's no, I guess, toolkit to get out of that, other than I can only share for myself what worked, was recognizing those differences. And it's because you've got your blinkers on and you're under this cloud of absolute despair, pain, hurt, like trying to get your heart and your head to match and figure out what's happened. But one day, and again, the time frame is irrelevant, but one day you will wake up and you'll notice that you can hear the rain on the roof. Or you notice that today I turned over on my side and just lay there for a little bit longer. That was different. Today I noticed that actually I've gone up and I made my kids breakfast, and I really watched them eat their breakfast and thought, look at that. Just the smallest steps are the most crucial, because quite often, and again, generally speaking, there's this expectation that something huge is going to be different. Something like you're going to feel this huge weight off your shoulders. You know, like I said before, grief is the equivalent of that love that you have. It's not going to just lift straight away. It kind of leads on to my next thing, where it's where your grief can make you feel really guilty, because like I talked about before, I felt absolutely terrible once I acknowledged and recognized that what I was doing was not necessarily a healthy or positive thing. But also, on the flip side, we have to sometimes learn that different feelings, and often conflicting feelings, can coexist. But we're not used to that if we haven't been challenged in such a way that you can feel absolutely destroyed, but joy at the same time. And it's figuring out how that works and how you balance that. Because you might, in one of those small steps, wake up and go, oh, I smiled. And then you automatically go, oh my gosh, I smiled. Like, how dare I forget this person? You're not forgetting the person. You're not forgetting this thing. You're not forgetting that hurt or pain. You're giving yourself permission to be okay for that moment. And I think that increasingly kind of organically flows into more often, and the feeling of absolute crippling pain, like, lessens in intensity at times and becomes less frequent, but it's still there. We live with grief, but our world expands around us as we start to learn to live alongside it. Like the expectation to, you're right me in, just get to keep going. But that's the name of it, timelines, feeling what we should be feeling, what we should be doing, putting the expectation on yourself that you should be doing something in a certain way, you should be happy. Those sorts of things, my dream is to abolish. They'll never happen, but soften and gain some understanding and share that with people, because I think they could be really helpful. I know it was for me.
I love that. Yeah. And it is that there is that tendency to want to just pull it all apart, but that's what's softening is where it starts, like with ourselves and as a wider community and society too. I know that that guilt thing was big for me, and it's big with a lot of people that I felt like even, early days, like just days after a loss, anywhere from there till years after, and feeling guilty for smiling or having a laugh. What's really interesting is some more modern bereavement research and models shows it's the oscillation. Yes, you need to go into that heartache and those really hard feelings and chase that joy, enjoy that happiness, or enjoy that laugh with a friend. And it's so important to have the both.
Yeah, that's it too. But like as you're talking, I'm kind of reflecting and trying to remember all those years ago. And I don't have to go that far back because, like I said, there's lots of different forms of grief that has kind of come my way. But you try and I think it's really nice to have these conversations, not necessarily for people who have just lost, people who haven't lost yet, and things like that, because can you imagine even contemplating that you might smile again in those first 5 days or for its few weeks or whatever it was for that massive cloud to slowly lift. You can't, there's no way that you actually feel like it's ever going to change. You feel stuck. And what a beautiful way yet again to connect with people who might be watching right now and listening later on, to know that actually that will eventually happen in some way, shape or form, be it big, be it small. But it's really unfair to say that to someone in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's incomprehensible.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one other, so I can't believe half an hour goes so fast. Actually, there's two. I know you write a lot, and I've heard you talk about it before, and I've also read some of it. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit about how you got into that. Was it something you already did, or was it something new that you just by chance realized that this was helpful for you, and how that's evolved over time?
Sure. So writing, I've always really loved writing. I think not necessarily as an outlet. I don't know if I used it as an outlet. I just enjoyed the act of writing, and I enjoyed, like a bit nerdy, I like doing essays and things like that at school way back then. But I've always enjoyed it, and I always like to look back at it. But that was kind of already installed in me. However, I found what I did, and some people out there may have done this too, I imagine so. But if not, and someone wants to give it a go, that's going through whatever, I found myself writing to Arden. So things I felt like I couldn't tell her and I'd missed the opportunity, I used that platform to talk to her. That's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But that's what worked for me. And then what I found is that become a bit more therapeutic. And I've always been quite good at getting my point across, whether it be in a creative, platform like writing or just speaking with people. But I found that I started to blog quite a bit and share my writing. And it wasn't like an overwhelming response or anything that kept me going. It was more it would take one person. There are more than one person reading it, but it would take just one person to go, that makes so much sense, or thank you for sharing, or I understand, or me too, I thought I was going crazy. Whatever the reaction, that is my goal in life. If I can help just one person feel heard, seen, validated, and it's some form of comfort or peace in that moment, my job is done. But going back to that writing, it's a therapy for me. I think that I find it quite cathartic to take that from my heart and my head and put it onto paper. And there's so many benefits to that. Not only do I get to share my, thoughts and feelings and story, but I also get to reflect on that later and revert to that and go, holy shit, I did that. Or that's right, I forgot about that. Or how did I get through that time because I'm feeling a little bit similar now. So it's such a good tool as well. It's not just a therapy. It's something that goes in your toolkit for the rest of your life. And how cool to be able to, if you choose to share it, because it's not necessary for everyone, it might just be for you. But how good to have that story that, it's me, that's so powerful. It's so powerful and so special because everyone has a story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is a lot of science talking about demonstrating the power of writing, whether that's for yourself or for others. But you found it really supportive and great outlet, and therapeutic thing. Well above anything that someone could tell us. But I also personally, I in my early days, I definitely like, because I felt like there was no one I could talk to that I could trust, that I took pen and paper with me everywhere, like literally everywhere. And I kind of had the mantra that there's no judgment coming. Paper. Let out anything. No one's going to judge me.
So, and you know what, there's a right or wrong, and that's the real, another expectation. But, you know, people might say, I don't know how to journal, I don't know how to write. There is no right or wrong way. You just start scribbling or drawing or writing words, and you don't have to make any sense of them. They'll eventually make sense to you if you want to look back at them. But in that moment, that's what needs to get out. So I just enjoy making it look pretty. And that's not every day. That, you know, sometimes it's chicken scratch, but it's good for me and what works for me. So I'll always share what works for me in case someone wants to try that. But the options are limitless in terms of ways that you can let things out.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to highlight, because if we hear about someone struggling, whether it's with grief or another one of life's hard things, it's like, oh, maybe you should go talk to someone. It's like, well, everyone, talking is a great mode of therapy with the right space, right time. And there's a load of other options out there.
And like you said, people are really well meaning. And I you know, like I said, we can go on for hours, but I'll try and hear it. But there's something I really, really love to, I guess, encourage or reframe or just switch the language around a little bit for those who are wanting to support or to help someone in that space, is maybe instead of using you should, just switching that around to you could. Because then what you're doing is like offering, hey, here's something you could try if you choose to, rather than putting the expectation on them or making them feel like they have to do something. Simply turning a word around like that and switching it out can make such a difference to someone's inclination as to whether they want to try something or not. So yeah, that's something I try to do rather than putting the old shit out there.
So valuable. So I'll try and put up now. And this is something that I ask everyone, because I feel like it's something that will really get stuck on, is that probably not so much the early day, but once you've recovered from the shock and you're like, well, I have this new perspective on life, what happens now, but still not feeling it or being able to see any light or hope for the future, and maybe just feeling a bit stuck. Do you have any? I'm sure you do. But what's more wisdom?
You know what? My wisdom or my thoughts on that question or that, I guess, situation would be to give yourself permission to not have so much pressure on yourself to be in a space where you need or have to feel like you move forward. There, you know, you probably are already moving, and I say moving forward because I think moving on is it's a harsh way to put things in it. No one wants to move on. No one wants to forget. And give yourself some grace, because quite often, and I just will generalize this, obviously, you know, it might be a year down the track or 2 years down the track, and people are like, why am I still feeling like this? I don't feel any better. When actually they probably do, but it's really hard to see at that point. And you really want to acknowledge again, well, personally, me, would like to acknowledge again that amount of love that you have for that person or you have for that thing is the equivalent to what you are feeling. If you have, and it doesn't even come down to time frame in terms of length of how long you've loved someone, it's the intensity of that love. I knew Arden for 10 minutes plus, you know, however many months she was in my belly, versus I knew my Nana for the 70 years of her life. The love that I felt for both of those people is equivalent, and it's equal. So the time frame is nothing to me. The amount of love is everything. So be more forgiving on yourself and be really gracious here. Don't put any pressure on yourself. And to me, it's all about noticing the little things, paying gratitude to all the weird things that are there for you, because it feels like nothing when actually there's probably a whole lot out there.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So one last question before I let you go, because I know you're doing some amazing work in the world, and so I'd love for you to share something that you're excited about at the moment and where people can learn more about what you do.
I'm excited about it at the moment. I'm excited about everything. I'm in a real, you see me get all wound up because I get so excited when I talk about it. But again, for those who have followed me will know that I've just opened my new space, and this is a space where I get to hold space. Literally, I know how cool. And did I ever think that that would happen? Absolutely not. That baffles me how incredibly lucky I am. I know I've worked hard for this, and I've had to go through a really big learning experience and a massive loss to acknowledge, actually, this is how I move forward. This is what I want for myself. I set those intentions. And in terms of what I do, it's not necessarily all about grief. Yes, that is a passion of mine. So obviously, I'm always inclined to support those navigating that journey. But this is a space where people can come to, or people can access me to navigate through any challenge that they're feeling. You know, like there's a lot going on out there. And sometimes we just need that healthy, safe space to offload, feel validated, and, you know, explore some options. So that is what I'm excited about. I'm excited about how better placed I am for my family. I'm excited about what's next. I've got lots of collaborating coming up. Oh, I'm just jacked. I'm so excited about everything. So, you know, you're going to have challenges in life. You're going to have things pop up. It's always going to happen, but I choose to experience that. Like I said before, will make all the difference.
Yeah, and congratulations on your own space. Where can people find you? You've obviously got your Instagram. Is that the best place to send people?
Instagram's definitely the space. There, obviously, I'm just quite new, so I anticipate a website coming soon, and there'll be a wee launch on Instagram showing the space and letting everyone know where I am. And yeah, I mean, the world's my oyster, so I'm looking forward to meeting new people and seeing new faces.
Oh, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Yeah. I hope that anyone listening has, I mean, you can't not be inspired by Dae-Maree and her passion. And I'm just so thankful to have had just this connection in the first place, and as well to have this conversation. You are such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and compassion, and such an important voice, the way that you care and talk about these things and really breaking the mold. Thank you so much for being with me, and thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom.
Oh, 100%. And we will do more stuff together. We will connect again. We'll get that ball rolling. And how good, like, yeah, same sort of work, same sort of thing going on, and different approaches. And I just love it.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Your support and precious attention means a lot. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share your insights and takeaways on socials and tag at Rewild You HQ. If you're ready to rebuild and thrive beyond your loss or adversity, visit rewildyouhq.com for free resources and to learn more about how transformative, dedicated coaching can support you on your journey. Not sure where to begin? DM Rewild You HQ on Instagram and I'll be happy to guide you in the right direction. Take care out there, and I'll see you in the next episode.